Would like to call to order the March 4th Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. We'd like to start with a roll call.
Sorry, excuse me. I got it. Byrd?
Present.
Cooper? Here. Gilmore? Okay. Gleason? Here. Hodges?
Present.
Holloway?
Here.
R. Johnson? Here. Kiefer?
Here.
Lord?
Here.
Nolan? Here. Obleton? Patel excused. Adela Rasso?
Here.
Ellen Rasso? Wills excused. I said Patel excused.
And we do have a quorum.
Thank you so very much. First thing up is citizens with CAC business to present to the CAC. Seeing none, we'll move on to a review and approval of the February 5th minutes. Should be in your packet there.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Thank you. Next is a review and acceptance of the financial report through October. I'll give it to Heather.
Thank you. I do want to point out, we do finally have a financial report to go over. Just for the record, there was delays with HUD approvals for starting the year this year, as was the case last year. And then there's a lag as we do get our approvals. It takes a while for that to work through kind of the report system. So we do now have our numbers, but I did want to it was in the packet as well, but I just want to note, the public services are still reflecting 0, but that's just because when they were finally able to submit their, request was late in September, early October, and it takes a couple weeks to get them paid, and then it has to show up on the report. So more than likely, we will start seeing public service reimbursements on next month's report. But just for the record, they were all eligible to request reimbursement retroactive to July 1st. So just because the year administratively was delayed on on that side, it didn't impact their ability to access their funds. They just didn't get reimbursed quite as quickly as they would have liked to.
Okay. Thank you so much for that report, Heather. Any other questions? I entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Thank you. Next is the year 50 CDBG allocation recommendations. We have the recommendations here in front of us. Before we begin, I would like to determine whether or not we would like to do public services or non-public services first. Heather.
Could I do a brief little intro?
Please.
If it please the court?
Yes.
And let me just see if we've had anybody join online yet. Does not look like it. So, okay. So you have several items in front of you. If I could just orient you on what you have. Firstly, there's a page that looks like this, and it says sample allocation based on formula. So that is the result of the tabulated scores. Recalculate your number. That's the amount based on the scores. Separate from that, because we do, CAC members do typically want to know the points. You have a two-sided sheet, and it says at the top, total scores from all CAC members. I do want to draw your attention, if I could, to the public service section of that. So it'd be the side of the paper labeled page 2. So the way that the formula sheet will work is the applicants are ranked in order of their scores, their cumulative scores from all CAC members. And in the event of a tie, meaning we have two agencies with the same amount, the approved process is that they will be ranked according to whichever one of the applicants has the higher score in the highest point value category. So in this case, we did have a tie. We had Big Brothers Big Sisters and Humility Housing both received 894 points, which is obviously a tie. So if you look over to the program compliance column, item A has the highest point value of any category. And you can see Big Brothers Big Sisters received 191 points in that category, and Humility received 181 points. And so this is the reason that when we get to the allocation spreadsheet, you will see that Big Brothers Big Sisters is ranked above Humility, even though they have the same amount of points. Because of the way the formula works, it distributes from top to bottom, so it does matter which comes first in terms of the formula. So when we've had ties in the past, that's how the tie has been resolved, and so I just applied that this year. Keep in mind, the formula calculated amount is just a recommendation to all of you. You have the opportunity to make changes to it, but there have to be inputs to the formula for it to have an output. So that is, I just wanted to be transparent. That is why one is ranked above the other. So you also have a sheet that has the word motion in bright red multiple times. So that is kind of the process, the motions that we'll need tonight for everyone to go through for the votes. And I'll cover that here in a second, but I just wanted to kind of lay that out for you. But the page I'd like to start with before we get to the calculated amounts is this one. It's got the colorful pie graphs on it. It's also on the screen, but in case you don't want to squint, you have a printout. This is the process we've been working towards for these many months. So just briefly recapping for anyone who may be watching from home. The application process began in November. There was an application workshop where all applicants were able to come and see what the requirements were, decide if they wanted to apply, and then they were given access to the online application. So they had until January 2nd. So that was late November. They had until January 2nd to complete their applications and submit them through an online system. We received those applications in January. We distributed them to the CAC at the first meeting, the first week of January. In mid-January, the CAC did an application review session where you could go over the applications and come up with any questions you might have as a group or submit them to us via email, and then we submitted those questions over to the applicants who then had to reply in writing. So that happened mid-January. Beginning of February, we had the presentation meeting. At the presentation meeting, the applicants came in and made in-person presentations to the CAC for all of you to be able to hear their kind of pitch and ask any questions you may have in person. And then the CAC members each got your scoring information, and you had about 3 weeks to score each applicant. So every CAC member scores every applicant, and those scores are totaled, and that's where we come in with the graphs before you. So this year, we had 13 CAC members who scored, the example here is public service, but the process is largely the same for non-public service as well. But there were 13 CAC members, and those members scored 11 public service applicants. Each applicant could receive a maximum of 100 points from each CAC member, which means if you think of the total pool of possible points available for all applicants from all scoring CAC members, the total pool of points is 14,300 points. So in step 2, you see we have a pie. So there are 11 slices of that pie because there are 11 public service applicants. You see that there is the dotted, the white dotted section. Unless every applicant received 100% from every CAC member, that is the only way all of the points would get awarded. not every applicant receives 100% from every scorer. And so as a result, in that pie of points that's available, there are some points that are unawarded. They just sit out there. Nobody earned those points through the scores. If you look down at the bottom, you can see the equivalent approximately in the public service category, approximately 14, there were 14,300 available, about 4,600 were left on the table. They weren't earned through scores. Then you come over to step 3. So just as there is a pie of points, there is a pie of dollars. Whatever share of the point pie an applicant earns, they're going to earn at least, at minimum, an equivalent share of the dollar pie. So you can see there are 11 little slices of the pie there. And again, there's a white dotted section, which are the unawarded dollars, because the way the formula works is if there are unawarded points, there are unawarded dollars. And so the formula comes through and it awards those extra dollars. And the way that it does it through the process approved by the CAC and followed these last few years is the applicants are ranked from highest to lowest score. And then that dotted section is divided up, and the top scoring applicant gets the largest chunk of those points / dollars. The next scoring gets another piece, but a little smaller, and so on until all the dollars are gone. So everybody gets a little extra, but the higher you are in the rankings, you get a little bigger chunk of those unawarded dollars, and the lower you are in the rankings, you get a little smaller chunk. So that's what the formula that the CAC has settled on does. And so I can go over the numbers here in a minute, just so that you can all see it, but it's always nice to have a graphic in front of you to kind of visually represent, where we're at with that. Any questions about that part of it? Okay, so if you can go to the sample allocation page, it says sample allocation at the top, and I will put it up here on the screen as well. It's tiny though, I apologize. I don't know how to make it bigger. There we go. Okay, looking towards the bottom, we'll start with the public service just for me to explain. So just as we talked about in the kind of pie graphs, you can see if you look at the public service section, there's the requested amount in the first column, the percentage, the ranked percentage of how many of those points each of the applicants received. I just want to note again, you see Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and Humility, they have exactly the same percentage, they were tied. And the reason Big Brothers, Big Sisters is ahead of Humility in the rankings is because they received the highest score in the highest point category individually. So that's how that was decided. So just as they received that percentage, they have the dollars equivalent to points earned. So as they got a slice of the point pie, they got a same size slice of the dollar pie. And then the next column is additional funds awarded to high scoring applicants. So you can see the highest scoring applicant gets about $12,000 additional dollars from that unawarded point category. And the lowest scoring applicant gets about $3,000 from that unawarded point category. And then you see the total calculated award. So that is the total of the dollars they earned through their points and the dollars they were awarded based on their ranking. So that's kind of the last category. Now, down at the bottom, you see there's $270,000. That's what we estimate is available in public services for the upcoming year. The formula assumes, based on past practice and preference from the CAC, that the CAC will want to award the maximum amount possible in the public service category, and our estimate for the upcoming year is $270,000. The last column on that page is CAC members voting no funding. So there is a place on the score sheet where applicants can, or CAC members can indicate for applicants that even though I'm scoring this, I do not feel they should be awarded. And so there were several that had a yes answer this year. Vera French had one member indicate that they do not feel it should be funded. CASI and Common Core each had one member indicate that they didn't think that it should be funded. And I do want to note on CASI, there was one member who put a question mark in that box, so I did not count it as a one. I didn't count it as a no, but it was a question mark, so I'm just stating that. So that's kind of the layout of how the formula works. Now, up at the top, the non-public services. So I know many of you know this, but some of you are newer members, and for anybody who may be watching at home, the public service category is capped by HUD. HUD has decreed, actually I shouldn't say HUD, it's capped by Congress. The law that Congress passed actually caps it. And HUD enforces the law that Congress makes. And so the cap is 15% of our grant in any given year, plus 15% of the program income that the program earns from the prior year. So what that means for us is this $270,000 is an estimate. For one thing, we do not know how much our grant will be next year. Congress hasn't passed the budget, so HUD can't tell us our number yet. And two, it's estimated, it's calculated on program income for the year that we're in now, which means it's program income we haven't even earned yet. So we don't know how much program income we have, so we don't know what 15% of that unknown number is. So that's why it's an estimate. We estimate it conservatively based on past history. We usually are pretty close to our number, but I just do want to be transparent. That's where the $270,000 estimate comes from. So on the top half of the sheet is the non-public services. So public services are our nonprofit agencies that provide services to low and moderate income residents. They don't provide cash benefits, they don't provide economic development activities, and they don't provide housing. That's what defines something as a public service. The opposite of that are the entities that do provide housing benefits, rehab, physical housing type of development, economic development, and then the administrative costs of running the program. So those are in the non-public service category, and they are not capped. So cities are not required to fund public services. They can choose to or not choose to. Davenport traditionally has chosen to fund them at the maximum amount. But even if you fund public services at the maximum amount, the bulk of the money that is available will be available in the non-public service category. And so those are reflected here at the top. Those do not have the calculated dollar amounts just yet, and that is because before the formula can calculate out the dollar amounts for the economic development fund and rehab fund, housing rehab fund, the CAC has to vote on a dollar amount for the administration of the program. So that's why that doesn't have calculated amounts just yet. So once you vote on those numbers, the formula will fill in the rest of those boxes. So that's kind of the orientation to scoring, since I know we only do it once a year. It's hard to remember things from a whole year ago. Any questions on that part? Okay, I yield back to you.
Thank you, Heather. I appreciate, it's always good to have that explanation of what we're doing and why, and so how important that we are following the process. Mr. Kiefer.
I'll make a motion to address public services first.
I need a second. Second. It's been motioned and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, so we'll do, you said public sector?
I'm sorry, if I could remind, all votes on the allocation meeting are roll call votes. So Dawn will get a workout reading 40,000 roll calls tonight.
Thank you so much, Heather. Don, whenever you're ready.
Byrd,
Yes.
Cooper. Gleason,
If I could remind, please do press your talk button so that the recording will catch you.
Yes.
Yes. Hodges,
Yes.
Holloway,
Yes.
R. Johnson,
Yes.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Lord,
Yes.
Nolan,
Yes.
Obleton,
Yes.
Adela Rasso,
Yes.
Alan Rasso.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you so much. So we've had a discussion of the formula calculated for each application, individually starting at the top, and we'll move our way on down. Okay. Heather?
If you could just give me one moment to catch up the online. We did have one member indicate that he was going to call in, so I just want to make sure I keep the right thing on the screen.
Okay.
Okay. So just as we talked when I kind of went over the printed version of this, this is exactly the same thing here on the screen. I will make it just a smidge bigger so you all can see it. Here we have, just as it was on printed, we have the percentage that each applicant received. They are ranked from highest scoring to lowest scoring. We have the dollars that were earned based on the points that were earned. We have the additional funds that are awarded. So these dollars are awarded in 2 passes. The first pass, the highest, since we have 11 applicants this year, the highest scoring applicant receives 11% of the unawarded dollars. The next receives 10, the next receives 9, and so on and so forth. That's why you see a higher number here at the top and a lower number here at the bottom. But even with that pass through, there were still some dollars left that were not awarded due to that second pass. So the formula then makes a third pass. And whatever is left over after that highest to lowest pass is awarded equally to all applicants. So that's why you see each of them with the same dollar amount here in this column, which brings us to their total initial award. However, no applicant can be awarded more than they request. And in this case, the total initial award did not bring any of the applicants to their requested amount. So there was no need to reduce anybody's calculated award to the amount of their request, except that the formula did, because of the way the rounding works, it awarded $2 extra, which are taken off of the lowest scoring applicant. So that was reduced down by 2. So that's what that -2 is. And so with that, this is the formula calculated award for each applicant, ranging from $30,000 for the highest scoring and $18,000 to the lowest scoring. Now, the CAC, this is a calculated amount that the CAC has requested as a point to start. You have the opportunity to override these numbers, to override a calculated amount, because the formula awards every dollar. Every dollar is awarded. In order to increase one applicant's funding amount, another applicant has got to be decreased. And so in order to make a change to the formula calculated amount, the CAC can make a motion that identifies the agency that will be reduced, the agency that will be increased, the reason for the change, and then that motion will need to pass with a 2/3 majority vote to make that change. So that would be the process you all will start down the path of now. The instructions typically say start from the top and kind of discuss one by one, and then make any changes or discussion you might have along the way.
Thank you, Heather. So the first public service to discuss is project renewal. Are there any questions or changes to be made to project renewal's amount? Reagan?
Thank you. I guess I don't have any, I don't have any changes to advise. I just wanted to make just an overall general comment, and it's just, I don't know that there's a fix or that there's, but it's just, of course, the more the merrier, and of course, I love to see as many applicants as possible. But it's sad to see that with that, we will be allocating much less than what was than they received last year. And I'm just sad to see that. And with that, it is very complicated to figure out a way to solve that, so I don't have any suggestions at this time, but I just wanted to make that general comment.
Thank you so much, Rick. Any other thoughts or comments about project renewal? Okay, seeing none, I will then move to the Friendly House Youth Program. Any thoughts, comments, changes requested for the Friendly House Youth Program? Seeing none, I will move to Boys and Girls Club. Any thoughts, adjustments to the Boys and Girls Club? Seeing none, I move to Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Quad Cities. Are there any changes, adjustments to be made to the Big Brothers Big Sisters? Seeing none, I move to Humility Mary Shelter and Housing. Are there any changes or adjustments to be made to the amount awarded to Humility of Mary Shelter and Housing? Seeing none, I will move to Salvation Army Family Service Center. Any adjustments or changes to Salvation Army? Seeing none, I'll move to Vera French. Are there any adjustments or changes to be made for Vera French? Seeing none, I'll move to Family Resources, Safe Path Survivor Resources. Any changes or adjustments to be made to Family Resources? Seeing none, I'll move to Iowa Legal Aid. Are there any changes or adjustments to be made to Iowa Legal Aid? Seeing none, I'll then move to KSI. Any changes or adjustments for KSI? Seeing none, I will conclude with Common Core. Are there any adjustments or changes to be made for Common Core? All right. I will now need a motion to approve the public service allocation.
I motion to approve.
Is it motion and seconded? Don, whenever you're ready.
Cooper,
Yes.
Gleason,
Yes.
Hodges,
Yes.
Holloway,
Yes.
R. Johnson,
Yes.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Lord,
Yes.
Nolan,
Yes.
Obleton,
Yes.
Adela Rasso,
Yes.
Alan Rasso,
Yes.
Byrd.
Yes.
And motion passes.
Thank you so much. Next, we will go over the non-public service. I will need a motion to recommend the allocation amounts for the city administration for planning and rehab, staff, and supplies. Heather, you have any additional comments at all? Okay.
No, just to recap, the formula, once a dollar amount is voted on for these two categories, will calculate a formula calculated amount for the housing rehab and the economic development funds. So that's the purpose of this vote.
Okay. First, we review the planning and administration request of $328,002. Any adjustments, thoughts, questions about that? Next will be housing, rehab, and staffing and supplies. Okay,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We do need a motion with a dollar amount. And maybe we're getting there. I did I wasn't sure.
Yep, I was about to, anybody will entertain a motion right now. Thank you, Heather. Keeping us on track. Appreciate that. It's been moved, Ms. Hodges, and seconded by,
If we could clarify for Dawn, she just didn't catch what the actual motion is.
I made the motion to approve the dollar amount.
Mike.
To approve the amount
I'm
as
sorry.
requested?
Wait a second. Yes, I made a motion to approve.
Go ahead, Joseph.
I make a motion that we approve the dollar amount as requested.
Joseph, did you want to I believe, Elizabeth, was that the
so she
motion?
said-
So
then
maybe you
I'll
want to
second
second
it.
it? Okay, so. Oh, okay. It's a unanimous motion amongst three, I guess. Put that in the minutes.
Generous bunch over there.
Sorry about that.
And so do we need to do housing at the same time, or do we do?
Could I clarify, the motion, was that for both planning and admin and housing rehab together? Or was that just for one or the other?
I was making it for both.
Okay, so if I could restate the motion, the motion is to fund at the requested amount for both the CDBG planning and administration and housing rehab staff and supplies. Is that a correct understanding? And for those who seconded, is that a correct understanding of the second?
Yes.
Okay, and John, do you have that down on your notes? Okay, all right, I think we're ready to roll call.
Okay. Gleason,
Yes.
Hodges,
Yes.
Holloway,
Yes.
R. Johnson,
Yes.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Lord,
Yes.
Nolan,
Yes.
Obleton,
Yes.
Adela Rasso,
Yes.
Alan Rasso,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
and the motion passes.
Thank you so much. Now I'll entertain a motion to approve the requested amount for non-public services as a whole. I'll wait to Heather, you put in the calculation.
Just one moment, I gotta let it
Yep.
calculate, just a second.
The calculations.
Okay, so similar to the public services, the formula works in exactly the same fashion. So each of the applicants is awarded funding equivalent to the amount of points that they earned in an equal share. Then any funding that's left over is distributed from the highest to the lowest. In this case, the pool of available funds was exhausted before making it to the second applicant there. So the total calculated award is displayed there in that column for housing rehab. The total calculated award would be $478,486. And for economic development, the total calculated award would be $181,438. And the CAC would have the same opportunity to discuss those awards and make changes via a 2/3 majority vote as the same process that we talked about for public service.
Thank you. So planning and administration, any changes or adjustments? I'll go through, okay. So now we can entertain a motion to approve the,
To approve if there's no, I think you're correct to offer the opportunity to change. Once you've completed that process, you would vote on the non-public services as a whole.
okay.
And then we would move to the full slate after that.
So any change to housing rehab staff and supplies? Seeing none. Any changes for housing rehab and neighborhood revitalization? Seeing none. City and Economic Development Fund, any changes to that? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the non-public service totals. So it's been motioned by Ms. Lord, and seconded by Ms. Johnson.
Okay, we'll go for roll call here. Hodges,
Yes.
Holloway,
Yes.
R. Johnson,
Yes.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Lord,
Yes.
Nolan,
Yes.
Obleton,
Yes.
Adela Rasso,
Yes.
Alan Rasso,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Gleason.
Yes.
And then the motion passes.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll have a motion to allow funding with program income as allowed by HUD regulations. The CAC requested several years ago that program income requests be voted upon annually. There is one request for program income generating revolving loan funds to utilize a portion of program income earned towards staff costs for the program. And it's the City Economic Development Fund has requested $54,828.
I think you stated it well. It's an annual request. It covers the 20% portion of the staff for economic development.
I entertain a motion.
So moved.
So it's been motioned by Ms. Johnson, a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Lord. Roll call vote, please.
Holloway,
Holloway, yes.
R. Johnson,
Yes.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Lord, Nolan,
Yes.
Obleton,
Yes.
Adela Rasso,
Yes.
Alan Rasso,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Gleason,
Yes.
Hodges.
Yes.
And the motion passes.
Thank you so much. So now we have approved both the non-public and public services. And so now we need a motion to recommend the entire slate of allocations to be moved forward to the city council. I will entertain a motion.
I would like to make a motion that the full slate is forwarded to the city council.
Thank you, Mr. Obleton. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. And Don, when ready, I will slow down.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. R. Johnson,
Yes.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Lord,
Yes.
Nolan,
Yes.
Obleton,
Yes.
Adela Rasso,
Yes.
Alan Rasso,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Gleason,
Yes.
Hodges,
Yes.
Holloway.
Yes.
And the motion passes.
Thank you so much. So in times past, we have given staff the flexibility for plus or minus 20%, because we do not know what HUD will actually provide us in terms of the actual grant. So we've made it, so staff has the flexibility that anything that plus or minus 20%, they can just go ahead and make the adjustments across the board. If it comes in higher or lower than 20%, then we would need to have another CAC meeting to reapprove the new amounts. So I am needing a motion. Heather, anything to add?
No, I think you have it correct. I do want to say we are expecting, we've been told we belong to a national advocacy organization, and they have told us that the HUD bill is among those that Congress has come to a decision upon and are hoping to vote on by this Friday. So hopefully we're in that first batch and we won't have to go through another continuing resolution. If that does happen, that would mean we'd probably be finding out our grant amount somewhere around the end of May.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Ms. Johnson?
I just have one quick question. I can't remember, and so, correct me, but has it always been 20%, or was it 15% in years past?
It was 15% last year. Thank you, I meant to make that mention. So in light of kind of what I just said, that we've been told Congress has come to a decision, but not what that decision is. And with regards to the HUD funding for CDBG, the House voted for a drastic cut for CDBG, and the Senate voted for level funding, and there is a gulf between those. So what would happen in that case is the House and the Senate have to have a conference committee and come to a number, and just given how different those numbers are, we've kind of been advised to hope that it's level funding, but prepare that it may be a cut. And so just my recommendation is knowing how, I don't think we've seen an appropriations process with that big of a difference in quite a while. So my advice would be to increase it to 20%. And part of the reason for that is we are ending a CAC term. And if we would have to come back and meet again, according to the bylaws, it would be with the current CAC. So we'd have to round up members who may consider their obligation to CAC that has ended to meet again to discuss this again. So my advice in this case, given the circumstance, would be to go to 20%. You're correct that it was 15% last year. If you're comfortable with going back to that number, we as staff are fine with it. It was just kind of looking forward and being prepared. But thank you for reminding me because I meant to say something about that.
Thank you, Reagan. I think it'd be good that we put that to a vote.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm satisfied with the answer. The motion on the table is for 20%, and I was just curious why, and I think I'm good with that.
No, thank you for the
Unless there's
reminder.
other discussion, but yeah.
I had a list of things to mention and that didn't make it on the list, but that was one of them.
Okay. Is everyone okay with 20%, plus or minus 20%? Okay, and that's the motion on the table. And I need a second.
I'll second it.
Ms. Nolan, second it.
Could you restate who was the first? Who made the motion?
I thought Reagan did, but she did not. No.
I will motion to approve the 20% fluctuation depending on funding.
Thank you. And seconded by Nolan.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Lord,
Yes.
Nolan,
Yes.
Obleton,
Yes.
Adela Rasso,
Yes.
Alan Rasso,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Gleason,
Yes.
Hodges,
Yes.
Holloway,
Yes.
and R. Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. That concludes all of our allocation recommendations. Are there any other business for the CAC this evening? Yes, Heather.
I have some other business. As I mentioned, this is the final meeting of the current CAC term. So we will be beginning a new term with our meeting in April. As far as I am aware, we aren't necessarily told these things until they go through city council, but from what the city clerk told me, I think all of our current members are returning, except for Therese Gleason will be leaving us after this meeting, and Carlton Wills will be leaving us after this meeting. So thank you to Therese for your service, and good luck. I understand you have some medical procedures in your future, so best of luck to you during those. And then obviously to Mr. Wills, who wasn't able to join us tonight, thank you for his time here on CAC. Also, we have two members, if I could ask you to see me after the meeting. The city clerk asked me to have you just review your bios, and that would be Mr. Obleton and Mr. Kiefer. If you could touch base with me to just have a look at those, and then he can finalize your information. And then, so next steps for this process, These are recommendations. The CAC is a recommendation body, and these recommendations will go to City Council for approval. That will be on the second cycle in March, so that will be March 21st and 28th are the dates, I believe, or 7th. 8th, something. The last 2 Wednesdays in March. I think it's the 21st and the 28th. And those will go to City Council for recommendation. We usually do invite the chair to attend if you're available. If you're not, that's completely fine. Just in case there are any questions or make public comment. Excuse me. So that will be the next step for that process. And then, as I mentioned, we do not have our grant award from HUD yet. We don't expect to have it for several more months. So hopefully, we'll be able to get the dollar amount before the end of this fiscal year. That would be our sincere hope, not only for our own sake, but for the subrecipients. You know, they're small agencies. They rely on the money. And delays, you know, don't feel good for them. So hopefully we'll be able to do that as soon as we can. But that's in the hands of Congress and the Office of Management Budget and HUD. So we just wait from this point. And then the last thing I have is, it is National CDBG Week, or I should say National Community Development Week, which celebrates CDBG in April. So we do hope to have some information out to you about you know, how we plan to observe that in the next couple weeks. So that is all I have for you.
Thank you, Heather. I do, Ms. Nolan, please.
Yes, I do have a question, because it seemed like we have to wait in order to do, because there's like award money yet to be continued.
Yes, that we, in terms of this allocation.
Correct.
Yeah, we do not, all of this that we have done tonight has been based on estimates. So we belong to a national kind of advocacy, kind of a trade group for cities that receive CDBG, and they have advised us essentially to hope for level funding, but to plan for a cut, just because there is such a big difference between what the House and the Senate proposed. So we're hoping that we will know within the next couple weeks, at least the top line numbers, meaning how much CDBG program nationally received, and then you can kind of infer maybe, you know, maybe you'll get a cut or maybe you won't from that, but we don't even have that much information at this point. So I guess watch the news, and maybe on Friday, if they vote on the, before, you know, they're supposed to vote before Friday to avoid another continuing resolution and or shutdown. So, and it's our bill. If you want to ever connect yourself to what's going on in Congress, that's how you do it.
There you go.
Our bill is the THUD bill, Transportation and Housing and Urban Development. And if you're hearing the news and they're talking about the THUD bill, that's you, that's CDBG. And so when Congress hopefully votes on that this week, that will give the top line numbers for HUD as a whole, and then that trickles down into all the other programs, but that takes a while for them to run all those numbers. So that's what we're waiting for.
So once that comes through, if there's money left over that we need to finish allocating, we'll meet again.
So
If it's
the,
plus or minus 20.
so the vote tonight was plus or minus 20%. So as long as that number, so we estimated a level funded grant, which is about 1.6 million. So as long as when the grant comes in, it's plus or minus 20% of that number, then staff will just make across the board increases or decreases as necessary. If the grant comes in and it's 21% or 25% different, then we will have to gather the CAC together, and you'll essentially go through the same process once again. But as of this moment, hopefully that won't happen. And by increasing the contingency amount from 15% to 20%, I'm hoping that we can avoid that, even if there is a big change.
Great. Any other comments? I do want to salute our committee. I believe this year was a little bit harder with so many more applications, and so it took a little bit more work. And thank you, Don and Heather, for guiding us through this process. There's a lot of bullets to keep in line, and so you guys have done an excellent job, and we truly appreciate it. So thank you all so much. If there's nothing else, I would like to call the meeting to order. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn for the night.
Ms. Nolan, it's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That concludes our meeting for this evening. Thank you.